I'm E.
I'm Rob.
I'm Rich.
Welcome to the next movement, folks.
Wish the sour taste I had was the sour dub I was smoking back in October. The bag's long been empty and thrown out somewhere in Pennsylvania. The debris of a good time traced back to my backpack from my friend's apartment. If only I had that, I'd be happy, right? Probably not. But the fixation helps the time pass until the next fix crosses my path. Till the next brick of hash, a pile of hash brown. Consumption is a cure. That's one thing they won't let vibe shift. Enter in those card digits. You get a free rubber duck for every $1,000 you shop with. What a pet prized possession. Maybe they'll bury it with me. And when I'm dug up in the future, they'll speculate if this was related to my religion or was this an heirloom. We found evidence of cannabis in his bone tissue. Was that for ceremony or recreation? Probably both, dear explorer. It was for eliciting ecstasy, opening doors of perception. But most days towards the end, coping with the fresh pains and horrors. I really wish I had some sour dub.
Rich Jones, thank you very much for coming through. We appreciate your time.
Man, absolute pleasure. It's an honor to be part of this.
Thank you. Thank you. So you have a new project out and it's called Sour Dub, and it was fully produced by SINAI, aka Sleep Sinatra. The description on Bandcamp says SINAI's foray in the world of hazy, glitched out production makes each track on this album unfold like a scene from a nostalgic summer evening. So grab a drink, light up, take a bite, and let Sour Dub transport you to a summer paradise where time slows down. Did you find yourself disconnecting from the outside world and living in this seemingly described utopia when you were making this album?
I don't know if I would call it utopian per se, but it's definitely a world where I control the parameters. So I guess in that sense, sure. I feel like a lot of my projects since the pandemic have been inherently coming from isolated spaces, as in there's been almost no recording with other people unless like we have the opportunity to do so. And then, if I'm in a studio, maybe people are going to email me stuff and whatnot. But for the most part, it's really just me and my computer and my mic and kind of whatever I'm able to come up with in that moment. I had a couple of features where we did it live. Dexy was one of the rarities, but we're good friends, so that was one of those days where that's actually how he ended up on the album because I knew I wanted Cavalier on Cool Jerk. The minute I heard that beat, I was like, man, I know I'm gonna do something cool. Who else would do something cool? And I was like, well, Cavalier. And then Dexy came over and I showed him what I'd done, and he was like, hey, let me just like write something and record something to this just for fun, just for fun. And I was like, bro, like just write a verse. You're on the song. um, so that was nice, and I'm hoping to try to have kind of more of those moments just because I do miss being able to capture things with friends. But I think a lot of it in terms of listening to the beats and like formulating concepts and anything else that might go into the songwriting process definitely has been by myself. It's definitely been a bubble type situation. A lot of me in my car driving around listening to beats like that really started back in 2020 with my album How Do You Sleep at Night, because in the earlier on in the lockdown I didn't really want to make any choices about anything, and especially when it came to music, like in terms of my listening. So I ended up on like Beats to Chill to playlist because it's like, oh, this is pleasant. I'm just gonna smoke a bunch of pot and just drift away to this shit and not have a thought in my head. And then like two weeks into that, I was like, man, they sure are playing a lot of the same things on these playlists. And also, I feel like I've got a friend or two that could like do this, and they're like just as good. If I don't want to say better, but they're just as good at what they do. So how about I reach out to them? And then that's how Montana Max ended up sending me 14 hours of beats, which I then chose the beats for our album. And then that's kind of how that repetitious listening style really took hold for me in terms of kind of plotting out my next few projects, at least for the full lengths. The EPs, it was a bit more of an efficient thing, like Blue Beach with Killer Kane. Literally, he sent me a 4-pack, and each of the songs fit perfectly. So I was like, yeah, this is the EP. Golden Beats, I went to Portland to make it with him, but that was just as much about I had to be in Portland anyway, so why not link with the people I know or know of, and let's eat some food and let's like have a moment and share. Like that was honestly my first kind of time back with people in any sort of consistent way. just in terms of like, oh, every day we're going into the studio, every day we're working. And, that was really special. So I think to bring it to Sour Dove, yeah, it's kind of taking the lessons from these previous projects, whether it's How Do You Sleep at Night or Smoke Detector, and just like listening to beats ad nauseum day after day after day, and then finding what I wanted to do with them, when it was finally time to do it. The other thing too, and something I focused on, which I think was an intentional choice to keep kind of a clear connection, a through thread through the whole project, as I recorded the songs consecutively. I wrote and recorded them in the order that they were written and recorded in. So, if I wasn't feeling a beat that day, I was like, all right, well then let's think about, if you do a different choice, it's not wrong. It's just, how does that change how you finish? How does that change your how this all kind of comes together? So I think it really allowed, I think, for a higher chance of cohesiveness, because there was that level of intentionality. If I'm going to write this, and then here's the thing, like, the actual writing and recording might take 30 minutes, or less, or maybe a little more, but it's like 2 months went into that 30 minutes of thinking and just, really, deciding what actually do I want to do. Because the other thing too, and something that you may have noticed is like, I'm not scared to sing. I'm not scared to throw curveballs on a beat and do something different. Like, I don't think Sleep Sinatra could have anticipated a lot of the choices I made. And I don't take that as a slight to him. It's more just like, that's something that I'm quite good at, is let me surprise the person that I'm working with what I'm going to do, but it's also going to make sense. So like, a lot of times when people send me beat packs or whatever, they'll be like, I know this is the one for you. And it won't be. And it's not a shot to them again, but it just isn't. And I'll be like, keep going. And then they'll go to the one that they think is like destined for the trash heap. And I'm like, that's the raw shit ever. Loop it up. Let me throw some effects on it. Let's go. And they'd be like, okay. So in that sense, that was part of the fun too, is like, because of the separation, because of not being able to be in the room with Sleep or like an Iceberg Theory or whoever, having to take agency to make choices about how things could go, understanding like nothing I was doing was by mandate. So like, if someone ever really had a problem with a choice that I made, I made it clear I wanted them to say, hey, I think there's a better choice. Luckily, I didn't really have to have that conversation with either of them. They were very hands off with me. So, and when it was all said and done, it was more just like, damn, I can't believe you did what you did. Or wow, I wouldn't have maybe seen that. Or like in like the case of Morning Moon, I really was excited because that was a chance to work with another vocalist in Manesi, and then also to have Eric Novak play saxophone on it and start kind of like adding in these non-loop elements to the song to give it more texture, more depth, complexity, think whatever you want to call it. Something that is not something you would necessarily see looped up. It's someone's honest take on something, whether it's vocally or through the instrument.
Could you talk a bit about the decision to name the album Sour Dub? Because I think it would be easy for someone to hear that title and make assumptions about what the album is about, but it's not that.
Yeah, I mean, initially the project itself was going to be, as like a joke. We thought it'd be funny to call it Rich Sinatra, and kind of play off that. And then as time went on, it wasn't that was a bad idea. Who knows, that could still happen. But like, I was at a juncture. It was in the fall, and it was right around the time that I started making records again, because I really took most of the last year off. And then in the fall is when I started pulling words out of myself and forcing myself to do shit, because, I've said this before, and I'll say it again. One of the big questions I ask myself when I've been dormant or like haven't made anything is like, so are you just a regular motherfucker now, or what? And the answer is no. So you have to prove that then. And I think about music every day. It's not something that's far away from my thoughts. I'm very engaged with it. It's just a question of, am I connecting those energies and emotions into, I don't want to use the word product too technically or to rob the beauty of it all, but like, is the, can I put this into something tangible? And so around the fall, I was in New York right before I went on tour with Shrapnel, and I picked up some shit called Sour Dub, and it just really agreed with me. And obviously with a name like Sour in the mix, everyone thinks, oh, Diesel, which I think I've actually there's been I've found out that in the growers community, there's a bit of debate, and I've actually been reached out to by a couple people that are involved, I guess, in the lineage of it. So it's kind of cool that I know that that's making the rounds in that world. There's a craft dispensary in Michigan, right on the border of Indiana and Michigan, that a friend um, is part owner of, and we went on a tour and they were actually growing it. And I was like, dude, this is serendipity. We got to link and make this happen. So that's how I told them about it, and then they started showing it to their grower friends and stuff. So it's that part was kind of funny. You just don't know where your music's going to go or how close to the source of inspiration it'll get. But in essence, I think it's a vehicle towards a larger thing. I mean, like the title track says it all. Um, I wish the sour taste I had was a sour dub I was smoking back in October. The bag long been empty and thrown out somewhere in Pennsylvania. The debris of a good time traced back to my backpack in my friend's apartment. If only I had that, I'd be happy, right? Probably not. And I think that speaks to, I think, a lot of the human experience of like, if I just had that one thing that you're coveting or looking for, and, kind of allowing that to be that as some sort of, I guess, like plot point on the map for fixation. You know what I mean? And so I like that concept of kind of longing, of dissatisfaction, of just kind of feeling a little smug and not, necessarily feeling crazy positive about much, which I think is kind of a low lying energy in a lot of my work. I always find it pretty amusing when people are like, it's such a chill listen, or this is such a positive, vibey thing. And I'm like, man, someday you're going to read the lyrics and maybe you might see that there's some tinges of venom just dripping from a lot of this stuff that I package in a way that's very nice to listen to. That's just as a coincidence, I guess, but it's not. It's intentional. So it's just to say, I think it's an easy entry point to say, oh, like this is just like a weed record or whatever. But obviously, if anybody has half an ear, they can tell that there's a lot more going on there. And I think also, I think about the interplay between title and art in terms of like the cover art or whatever. And I really liked, especially with that title, being able to kind of play around with like kind of like old dance hall record motifs and kind of those sorts of aesthetics, with the colors and the layout and whatnot, and like the lettering choices and whatnot. Working with Zilla Rocca from $3 Pistol, and then Randall Bravery from Team of Hermits to kind of make it all come to life. So I think in some ways it's a title that was maybe a little casually affixed to it, but then as time went on, the meaning kind of came after in certain respects, and was able to kind of grow around the nucleus of the title.
I think Sleep Sinatra is a really great storyteller. And when I listened to this album, it was clear to me that he was able to carry that same energy through his production work. Did you anticipate that when you teamed up for this project?
I guess yes and no. I think by storyteller, the word I would use, not saying you're not wrong at all. The quality his beats have to me are very cinematic, which lends
Mm.
towards a narrative or a story or some sort of train of thought. And so I think like I knew to expect that, just again based off of like his cover art, his song choices, his themes and whatnot. So I think in that sense, yeah, maybe there's a little bit of that obvious connection there, sure. Or kind of, expectation. But yeah, I think for me it was I had zero fear that he was gonna send me some booth. I knew it was gonna be something like that hit, but also had the ability to be like beautiful and really just delicate as well. That's something I really love, is interplays between things that boom and then things that are just like, very gentle. I think like that sort of relationship and like how one maybe protects the other in various ways, I think is really interesting, and something I I kind of lend towards, because like as a vocalist, I'm not at this juncture necessarily the most energetic. I rap forcefully, I vocalize forcefully, but it's not forced. It's not
Mm.
strained. It's smooth. And that's practice. That's also me coming to grips with like what is my actual pace? Um, where am I? How am I actually trying to emote that is going to feel genuine and will also be, you know, whether someone considers death metal pleasant or not doesn't matter. Is it going to be nice to whoever the listener's ears? You know, are they going to dig it? And so, like, I think in that regard, you know, I really appreciated that it was going to provide me fantastic things to do exactly that. And, you know, especially to melodicize, because I don't, I know he's worked with, I think her name's Cecile LaFleur. She's on the Spirit of Baldwin album he just put out. So I know he's worked with other vocalists and stuff, but I don't know if he's worked, I know he hasn't worked with an album on a full length like this that's maybe doing both the rapping and the singing and kind of fearlessly interplaying between the two. So I think in that sense, I think it's really special that we could get on this and make it happen. I think the other thing too I want to point out, because I think sometimes, I mean, y'all don't seem to have this confusion. So leave yourself out of this next statement. But like sometimes people don't necessarily know what to call me because, you know, I do have like singer songwriter pop leanings in what I do. And so it's like, is he a singer? Is he a rapper? What is he? And I mean, both are accurate, but the most accurate to me is MC because it stands for microphone controller. I do what I want. I control flow. I've earned the right to say that because I can do it all. So if I can make it go seamlessly together, and again, it doesn't seem forced, then I've done my job. I've done exactly what the title of what I do does, is I've controlled it.
Mm. I like that.
Rich, I think you're just speaking a lot to something that I was going to ask you about, and that is just the cohesion on this project. I really love this album, by the way. Like, I'm a
Thank you.
big fan of this album, and I think the things that you're saying about Sleep's production and the softness, melodic nature of it, while it's also grounding, like it's just a perfect fit with your vocals and your style and your approach. And it does lend itself to this like laid back feeling record that has this contrast, right? And some of the like weight as far as what the lyrics provide. How involved were you in shaping the sound? I mean, besides your writing.
I mixed most of the album. Kane came in to do a little bit of cleanup work because I was having a few issues kind of towards the finish line that I just needed the pros pro to come in and just do little minor tweaks. But for the most part, you know, I was handling vocal mixing, you know, whatever Sleep gave me, I just worked with it. I didn't overthink it. You know, this isn't some beautifully stemmed out thing we're working with. It's beautiful by itself. I didn't need much more. And I found other ways to kind of like maybe amp up certain sections as need be. I mean, it's very much like kind of like throw out the rule book and just kind of do what you feel. I've had some like really interesting sessions, like a couple, one, not too many, but a handful of sessions with people that actually know what they're doing that have given me some very basic tips. And with just a few of those things in the mix, it's been really fun to confidently trust my ear and to kind of learn how to train my ear too, you know, as much, you know, because it's at a certain point, the way I mix is more based on taste than science, but I am starting to learn not any specific things about the science, but I do notice if I do X, Y, Z, it does this. So what if I pair it with this? You know, and finding different, I guess, equations for a guy that hates math. It's weird to say that word. I like adding money. That part's fun. But you know, it's something where I really relish the opportunity to start texturizing that because I think the other thing, you know, I spoke with Dano and Kay from Free Music Empire about this the other day, and it was, you know, to the point of like they thought it was very interesting the way it was mixed because they found it wasn't overly polished, but it's not raw, and that to me means I succeeded because I think a lot of music mixing, regardless of genre, is not adventurous enough. It's boring. It's boilerplate, and people make that choice for the reason they make that choice. So I'm not here to say they're wrong, but from my taste as a listener, it's not going for me. I prefer things that seem to kind of have a little bounce to them or something that makes me feel something. You know, if something literally has a texture to it, you will feel it. If it is just this clean cut, sleek, Snowpiercer of a song, cool. Like, again, there's a world for that. Shout out Robin. I love Robin records, but even her stuff has texture, like she's an amazing pop artist with like a massive team behind her. And so her and her team, great work. Call me. I would love to get down. But in this instance, I'm appreciating and valuing the opportunity and trust that people are giving me to do that, because I've been doing that since How Do You Sleep at Night. Max really held my hand for that one because, someone had to. And then Golden Beats and Kane have given me little bits here and there, and Steel Tipped Up too. I've really enjoyed kind of like learning to meld with him as we've been maybe or maybe not working together. But it's just something where I really took that as an honor to do that. And again, to the cinematic quality, I'm like, well, how do I add to that? How does my editing skills make this even dreamier or even just more whatever, whatever I felt was needed.
Same spot my neighbors walk their dogs is where you took your last breath. On to the next day, till I ain't got none left. Mediating between joy and stress. Who gets weekends, who gets weekdays? In search of sweetness behind crime scene tape. I'm asking why you were taken away. Don't wanna boil it down to you being a warning or tale of woe. You laughed so loud, it was like the sun shone as bright as it could. I'll see you again, knock on wood, I see you again, closed eyes, I can travel back in time, gets fuzzier, fainter, the banner muted, till it's shadows, until it's darkness, I sit in it until I'm gasping, starving, it's not my time, yeah, no, it's not my time, yeah,
I want to ask you about the track Ice Cream Cake. The track for me kind of encapsulates the album. From my interpretation, it captures sort of what I have seen as the general theme, like pain, confusion, escape, and their relationship to smoking. On the track, you're questioning senseless death, people around you. On the hook, in the background, you're saying, please pass the ice cream cake, asking for some relief from it all. At what point in the process of making this album did this track come together?
Track 2. So if you may have noticed on the album cover in the corner, it says the Speedrunner Suite Part 1. This is one of 3 albums that I started 3 years ago. And the tongue-in-cheek joke is, they started 3 years ago, but I'm speed running to the finish line to finish all 3. So there's 2 more albums that are going to be, hold on, someone's chopper is going down the street. It's one of 3 albums that's about to be coming out sometime within the next, between now and like maybe 12 or 15 months. And that's kind of my little playful jab at myself for struggling to finish these. But I'm doing my best, and luckily I have very patient collaborators who know my heart is pure, even if I annoy them sometimes by going quiet. But so in that sense, Ice Cream Cake too is funny. I know it's a strain, and actually, one of my friends messaged me. He's like, "So, are you rapping about the strain Ice Cream Cake, or what?" And I'm like, "Well, I mean, that's a fantastic coincidence." But weirdly enough, when I was thinking about it, we were at my partner's home in Massachusetts with her family when I was recording that, because kind of lockdown era, we were going out there to spend time with them because they live elsewhere. We're in Chicago, so we'd go out there for 3 or 4 weeks. That's how Blue Beach got made. Actually, I was like, I have 4 weeks to do whatever I want because I'm not at home. So Kane sent me the pack, and we got to work. So in this instance, I was kind of making a rough allusion to literal ice cream cake because that's my lady's favorite ice cream, or my favorite cake is ice cream cake. So it's kind of a little nudge to her, but. The song itself though is quite a sad one. Literally the same spot my neighbors walk their dogs where you took your last breath. I mean, that's about my friend who we lost a long time ago, and I still drive by the spot, and it's a place where people push strollers and are living, and meanwhile that's where he ended, and it's weird to, I guess, get used to it. There is no getting like fully used to it, but to just be able to just kind of see what is happening in that same place. And, I guess in some ways I'm grateful that more bad things haven't happened in that exact same spot, but as kind of a way to set the scene, it definitely definitely made me think a lot about. I mean, generally speaking, I feel like if you haven't thought about mortality given current events post 2020, I have a lot of questions for you. Either how do you turn your brain off, or what the fuck is wrong with you? Like, I think you need to change, because I feel like that's been on the mind more and more. I mean, I'm also getting older too, so more people are dying, and unfortunately prematurely too. So it's just kind of coming to grips with that's just going to keep happening, and that
Mm.
sucks. But God, we have to honor and love them every day, regardless, if they're here or not. And so I think, yeah, in some ways, yeah, you're right. There is a weirdly spiritual center to the that record, but it's funny, that was track two, and I think I didn't record another song. I didn't record another song till I did I think Cool Jerk's the next one. And yeah, that was like almost 2 years, like a year and a half later.
Mm.
Part of that was because I at that time I was working on Smoke Detector and like finishing it. And then for various reasons, I had to take a break, and I just wasn't sure of myself in a lot of respects. And I mean, from making music, I wasn't as sure. I also, to be fair, at that point had released three projects and had barely toured or done any shows. And I felt, maybe I don't want to make anything new right now, but I definitely want to perform. And especially going on tour with Shrapnel and playing a couple of the shows that I did last year, it was just like, okay, I fucking love this. This is my shit. Like, I still love doing this. So maybe in the, like, especially recording a couple of those things before tour and then finishing tour and being like, okay, like, I still love this. I need to finish this project. I need to get going. Like, you know, I want to go out there and play these new records for these people instead of, maybe songs from a year and a half ago now. So in that regard, it was a really great catalyst, I think, to get that kind of separation from one to the other. I know some people really don't love performing. I know some people don't entirely love recording, but I happen to be someone that enjoys both of them in their right wave and dose. Um, so that was just, like I said, speedrunner sweet. Let's get going, and then luckily we got part two and three in the wings, and who knows, maybe we'll be talking about those in the next 3 to 9 months.
Before we started the episode, we were talking about the Shrapnel release party in Brooklyn last month, and you and I are both there. And in between sets, I had a conversation with Nosage from New Kingdom. And
Hmm.
at one point during that exchange, he looked around at the people in the room and he said, "We built this." And even before he elaborated on his thoughts, I knew what he meant. He was talking about the community of folks that were present for the show and the connections that we have with each other. So, in learning more about you, I know that you're someone who deeply values community. And I'm wondering, each time you work on a new project, you're building and collaborating with different folks. So does the way that you define and view your community continuously change?
I'd say, yeah. I mean, as time passes, it's really remarkable how much lonelier it can be just in terms of general existence. I think, for better or for worse, a lot of us take for granted built-in levels of socialization that come from a 9 to 5 or a school or any sort of like team group activity or like a volunteer thing or whatever. And, I think I I gotta be real. When I was a kid, I knew I wanted to make music. And then I guess in terms of growing up, I knew I needed to figure out a job probably, and I was hoping that was going to be music. But like, yeah, I very early on found I couldn't work in offices. And then not too long after that, I realized I wasn't really great at serving alcohol to people, because I started asking myself the dilemma of, if I overserve this person but can pay my rent, what does that do? And that was a really weird one. I was like, shit, I really need money, and this is the only guy in my section drinking. But Jesus Christ, he's gonna throw up during the Oscar viewing party here. We can't have that. Or worse. So like, I don't know. I luckily fell into a line of work that agrees with me and allows me to kind of be, I think, the indoor outdoor cat of my dreams. I run a marketing company. Like, we do like wheat paste marketing and retail and all sorts of stuff. And it's been a really fulfilling thing because my days are heavily in my hands. But
Mm.
The thing that comes with that is increased isolation, and I'm not around people as much as I would have been. And like the other day, Montana Max randomly had like a half day of work, and I just happened to be done with work. So I beelined it to his studio. We haven't been together in that scenario in way too long. And it was us and our friend Britt. And it was just the three of us just shooting the shit, drinking beer or soda water or whatever whenever each of us was enjoying, and just listening to beats and making stuff and fucking around. And like I used to do that all the time. And now it's like, damn, this is the first time I've done this shit in how many months now? Like that's heartbreaking. It's really sad. And I miss that. And, hopefully I can get back to that. But to get back to I think what you're really asking about, yeah, like in place of those sorts of things, I've had to find different types of community. I mean, obviously digital communities have been a really strong lifeline, both for, folks that maybe are homebound or, are less inclined to be, out and about. You can find people who you vibe with, or whatever. And luckily, most people I've met through the internet are actually pretty sweet. We're all unique forms of weird, but no one's really malicious, and so that's something I'm grateful for, is we got a high batting average there. But it's definitely, when it comes to the community side of it, I feel, especially when it comes to what's happening in the East Coast and in a few other pockets of the country, in some ways I'm almost more in tune with some of those people than I am in my own city, and I think there's a lot of reasons for that. I think, for me, I really, really, really wanted to know what everybody was doing. And it's like, it's not even FOMO. It was more like genuine curiosity of, I just got to know what's happening tonight. So I might go to 3 or 4 parties in a night. One of them be the gallery party, one of them be the basement rock show, one of them be the club night. And I'm just meeting people and then maybe we're going to a comedy thing, whatever, like wherever there are kindred spirits in terms of folks that are interesting and curious and kind, I wanted to be and seek those people out. So I think I've found that, especially in some of the places I've traveled to, and because of that, I've now made a point to be more present in those places, because why not go where you feel just so wonderfully yourself? I mean, look, I'm in Chicago. I feel so myself here. It's like when I come back here, say from like visiting, family, or like having like quieter trips or whatever, it's like I'm getting plugged back into an outlet. I'm just like, whoa, like cable guy cover shit. Like, it's so sick. I love it here. I love showing people around. I love, getting them introduced to all the things that make this place so wonderful. But I also think, from my story and my journey, so much of it is also attached to the ability to treat this as a base camp to go elsewhere, to foster that larger community. That, if we're doing this right, hopefully has Chicago as a linchpin. One of my favorite sayings is infinity loops from Chicago. And how are we sending people out? How are we bringing people in? Because that's the other thing too. Like I have an inclination to leave. How do I make that be a benefit to younger artists, or maybe not as seasoned artists that are trying to leave? So when they want to go play Brooklyn, maybe I have an option for them. Or if they want to go somewhere, maybe I can connect them, or vice versa. How do we start resource sharing in a way that, is not just that isn't transactional? I want to stress that it's not quid pro quo shit. I mean, there's, I guess, an elements of that, but like, no, like, if we're fucking with each other, let's fuck with each other and let's move together. We're stronger in numbers. So yes, we built this. We also are in charge of moving it forward. And so how do you do that? Obviously, those sorts of things, family can be a messy thing. Music politics can be a messy thing. But I'm really happy with, where things are in a lot of respects right now. And I'm very grateful for whatever part I play in that, or whatever part I have in that.
This past week, you had one of those billboard trucks out in Chicago with the sound or on the side of it. Was that just for the Wicker Park Fest, or did you have that going for Pitchfork also?
That was just for Pitchfork. That was 2 weekends ago. That was for me. That was fun. Like I said, I run a marketing company, and one thing that's been really fun is, like, if I see a new thing, I think about, well, shit, how about I be the guinea pig and show people that this can be done? And, it's also a great way to, love me some me and, help me also get excited about what I'm doing. Cause I really do think a lot about the art of marketing, presentation, things of that nature. And I think, wow, there's a great way to belabor it to death and really rob yourself of the joy of it. I also think if you get it moving in concert with what you're doing, then it's really special. Like I think with Sour Dub, I mean, Smoke Detector was sick because we had single covers for every song. It was very ambitious, in terms of kind of creating these sorts of like bits of like content for the world or whatever. Sourdough was very much more straightforward. It's more uniform. I mean, like the Running Man logos you see for the single covers, that's going to be like the Speedrunner Suite logo for every single that we drop for the next year and a half. And the only thing that's going to change is in the corner, you'll see the name of the album that it's on. And then which part is it? Is it part one or part two? You know what I mean? And like, to me, I think that's really cool to kind of create that sort of like series or lineage, especially as it goes across albums and is, I gonna kind of tie together things that I don't want to call them disparate, but what really ties them together is they all started around the same time. They're all aging like fine wine. And so I think it felt very apt to, find a way to be like, this is a trilogy and it's not a trilogy. It's not going to be Sour Dub 2. It's going to be, no, it's like a completely different title, but it's still of that same broader universe of creative pool.
So were you driving that truck or you just riding?
No. This guy I met, I was out working and I saw this guy driving and we exchanged info and here we are.
From the photos, it looked like it was a lot of fun.
Well, it was cool. They were playing the music too. Like they just had Sour Dub on loop, and I'm just watching as all these people are leaving Pitchfork, and they're like, "Huh." And then some friends of mine didn't see me kind of hanging out in the corner, like, "Damn, Rich." And then I'm like, "Hey," and they're like, "Damn, Rich." Yeah, there was a lot. Yeah, that was pretty cool. And you know what? My friend who is like literally a publicist for the festival, I hinted at something happening. And then he walked out and took a picture and said, "Good job." And I'm like, "Thanks, dog." So, that's the 2 thumbs up I needed.
Rap battles, I saw MCs going at it. Crews playing new records, I arrive in car static. From Frisco to Oakland, like Bronx to Manhattan. You know what's happening, Charizma style of rapping. AOB, you know your man Quan, that's 7 feet tall. He should drop the mic and pick up a basketball. Yes, y'all, mad love to my crew, everyone's real cool. All we wanna do is to be in a record pool. Yes, y'all, this is my design to make my niggas rewind. Labels pull crimes, it's time for me to resign. The style's deep, even when we fall asleep. Dreaming of the usual, a rap beat. I got class with my mouth, so remember this. If you're not down, you're expelled off my premises. I come with bombs when the singer's loud hectic. I'm clean cut and suave, the dapper type, man. I got method. I got method. I got method. I got method.
Every second part of the show, we spend time talking about a hip hop album chosen by our guest. And tonight we're talking about Big Shots by Charizma and Peanut Butter Wolf. So I'm really curious, when did you find this album?
So 2008, my friend Everett, who shot the Western Automatic music video for Sketch 185, we've been friends since before then, like 2006, 2007, when he was going to Columbia College. And we started hanging tough that summer in 2008. We ran into each other at a party. Actually, this is pretty funny. I'd met this guy like a week before, and he's like, "Yo, come to this party. You should bring some demo CDs. There's going to be producers." And there was this kid there who was going by Yellow Mask. And I was like, "Oh, cool. Nice to meet you." And he's like, "You got a CD?" And I'm like, "Oh, yeah. I only got like 2 though. I don't know anything." And it turns out that guy was fucking Jeremiah J.
Oh, wow.
Before he was Jeremiah J. We chatted for a little while after that and like kept in touch for a while. I'm so sad. My old email account, everything got scrubbed but I had a beat that he sent me from like 2008 that like sampled like Sufjan Stevens or something. It was funny. I wish I had that somewhere. Maybe it's on an old computer, but um, yeah, it's just all sorts of funny. Yeah, so we hung out a lot that summer. We just were smoking weed and playing Nazi zombies on Call of Duty and listening to rap music and just having a great time. And I'll never forget when he showed me the red light video, and he was just so geeked about it. And then he showed me methods, and then yeah, just from there I was like, dude, this is like so fresh, this is so fun. You hear the story is so tragic, it's so sad. And this is before I'd experienced any of that kind of loss. And in some ways it almost, it again, it's a really fun listen, and I feel like it makes me feel like a kid again. But there's also, you can feel like the sadness that's also attached to it due to the tragedy that comes with the story. And so with that, I think, I don't know, it just there's something about it that I go back, and it's like the rose tinted glasses just instantly go on, where everything just feels some level of right. Like life's not perfect, but I got a pack of cigarettes and a six pack, and we're gonna go to a party tonight. Or maybe I'm trying my best to maybe record a song, but I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. I don't know. Hope. There's a kind of a weird purity to it that I think really really hits me in all the fun ways. So yeah, that also reminds me of that time period when I think those were more of the overarching emotions as well. So I think that's, I think, why I dig it so much. And that's also when I first kind of came into my sphere.
Yeah. You were talking about the like sadness around it because of what happened to Charisma, and it's interesting. I was listening to it today, and there's some things that he says on here that like hit different because you know what happened to him. Like I think
Yeah.
it's on Ice Cream Truck, the sample like that is used in the production. There's at one point it says another brother gone,
Mm.
and it's like shit.
Kick that shit, charisma, I put things in motion. I'm not coasting cause rhymes deeper than the ocean. So put the shit on file, cause I'm buck wild. Sure enough, got style, ruthless like a juvenile. Cause many MCs can't hang tough. Started up blunt, then they soon got snuffed. You snuffed up, yo G, you damn right I did. Gave him a bib and then I shook him in the crib like a lullaby. My mommy sung when I was 2 years old and taught me not to pass the old gold. But the apple juice, what? Charisma drunk in the quiet storm. I wax the butt till morn, that's what it's born. Because I'm flexing the style like Luther Rigno. You know, bro, yo, I make the crowd scream ho and ho and ho. When I float slow like heavy D dope, you know. Many was stiff like scarecrows. Some may say, what are you talking about, charisma? Yo, I'm just saying charisma's funkier than Tisma. So clap your hands or give me a pound and a half. I'll break fast to bust another rappers. While the duck MCs flex like jerks. Thought they was dope, but had our hopes like a mini skirt. This ain't the reggae, but if you try to get fly, your blood clot man, you just get rocked in the eye.
Another young brother hit.
And like an acrobat, my metaphors start to flip and flip. Up and down like a seesaw, locked on like a pit bull jaw. This shit is raw. I start to slam. Damn, G, you don't know who I am. Play it again. Nope, it ain't Sam or Samuel, but I still go through a lot of them. Faces are grim like they was drunk off strong.
Because you're listening to this and you're like, he died when he was 20 because he got shot.
Well, that and hit the interview that's a part like towards the end of the
Yeah. And I love
Yeah.
I'm 18 years, I was born in 1973. I'm 18 years old, and I love
Yeah.
I love making rap music. I love it,
Yeah.
like whew, yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. No, there's definitely, it's weird to have the hindsight of it all really highlight certain things, but yeah, man.
I'm not super familiar with the album, so I was glad that you picked it because it gave me a chance to listen to it again. It's been a while. I was just so struck by how of the time it sounds. Like it's no like mystery that it was recorded in 93 or whenever. 93, right? Is that around 91 or 93 was around the time that they recorded it?
Yeah, like early 90s. Let's say
Yeah.
that. Like not like between 91 and 93, I think.
And it sounds like it's from that era. It like fits in my mind, at least, with the other things that I know from that era, which I had kind of forgotten about.
I think the saving grace that keeps it current though is Wolf's production.
Mm-hmm.
Because if he's rapping over some mid, maybe we're not having this conversation, and you know, especially as we've seen rap styles evolve or devolve depending on your opinion over the years. And like I think, you know, I love, man, him and Edon are two of my favorite rappers because whenever they rap, they just sound like they're having fun and they just hit that pocket. And you're like, man, come on. You know, it's just I don't know. So it's to me, you know, I think, but he could stand on his own by himself regardless of the production. But obviously, I think that also being in the mix helps make this to me some level of like, as much as it's a time capsule, it's also timeless to me.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
thought about that when I listened to Methods.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That could come out tomorrow, I think.
That song just makes me want to just like rip bongs and stare at a lava lamp and think deep thoughts.
Rich, where do you think Charisma would be now if he was still with us?
I don't even know. I mean, look at how few artists get to have multi-decade careers. For all we know, he's a fantastic flag football coach somewhere in San Jose and has a loving family and is doing God knows what, or he's a record executive and he's helping Wolf run his label or, you know, whatever, you know, who's to say, you
Yeah.
know, I think it's really, yeah, it's really, yeah, we could speculate. I don't know. I would hope, I'd hope doing something positive. You know, I think one of my, one of my theories, which is, you know, I'm not saying it hasn't occurred, and I'd be more than happy to hear y'all's opinion on who you think embodies this. But like, I think a lot of MCs, it's like baseball players, like hitters. I remember reading in a short story somewhere. They're like, it's not your eye that goes, it's your speed. You know, so your timing is there, but you can't do it the way you did it. And I think with rappers, it's not that their flow necessarily goes, but their ear does. And I think they lose the thread on what would make sense based on previous work and where they could take their shit, you know, in the future. Like I'm, you know, look, you're talking to someone. I've made all sorts of music. I've made pop music. I've made R&B. I've made soul. You know, I've gone far away from the nest, so to speak, in terms of like my creative start, and it's something to say that like, you know, I that was for me, I think ultimately to become a better MC and a better music maker and better rapper. And that was a really fantastic outcome, you know, because you know, there's a world where maybe I'm just singing pop songs the rest of my life and that's that. And I'm really grateful I don't live in that world, in a lot of respects, because I feel like I'm in many ways exactly where I need to be, much like thinking about what I wanted to be as a kid. Like I'm creating exactly what I want to be as an adult. So anyways, to make this, you know, back to your question, like, you know, I feel like a guy like him. I mean, look at like what Stone Throw did with Percy P, and like they took a guy whose skill set is immaculate and they paired it with the right beats, and then you've got classic albums. So I think that's the math. If you can find the right production that fits that artist and can essentially create new context for what they're doing, that it respects the past but also brings them forward, then that's the winning combination. I think there's a lot of homage music or stuff that's meant to be like, we're bringing such and such thing back, and hey, like, that's not wrong. People can make whatever they want. It's just I don't always know if it's the best use of someone's skill set or like their pen. And you know, I think it's also a situation where you have, you know, who's going to tell a legend you got to step it up, you know what I mean? So it's like creating scenarios where those sorts of frank conversations can be had. You know, and I don't know if everyone's all open to it. Oh, hey baby, how you doing? Good to see you too, man. I love that jacket. $20. I mean, dude, donate to the family fund. Sorry, I just ran into a friend.
That's fine.
But yeah, so you know, you know, I would hope Charizma's making the most fun rap records ever, and shit, maybe him and, you know, Dame Funk get together, and you know they're making funky shit, you know, or who knows, you know, maybe he gets bored of hip hop and is like, you know what, we're gonna put this on pause. I gotta make, you know, electronic music or just make something completely other. Like I feel like for me, I could see a world where, you know, I've only on one time made music under a different title or a different project name, really only like a handful of times. It's never stuck. I just always felt like it was better to make my own shit under my name. It just was easiest. But someday if I do really want to have that separation, what does that look like? What universe is that? And maybe it's totally divorced from anything you'd ever would expect. Maybe it, again, is reverential of my past, but is moving forward. Maybe it's completely anonymous and you just happen to be like, damn, this shit's raw. Who is this? And you just won't know for maybe a decade. Who's to
Mm,
say?
yeah.
So yeah, I hope any of all of the most positive outcomes for if Charisma was still here.
Yeah. I will say I think Black Thought's an exception to what you're saying.
Sure.
That's yeah.
I mean, but also he's rapping over like great beats.
Well, that's what I mean. Like his
There is
ear
yeah,
hasn't
like
gone.
well, I mean also I don't know shit about his process, so I don't want to speculate. How much of that is somebody saying this is what you're doing and how much of that is saying I am doing this? Which like if it's him leading the charge or it's somewhere 50-50, either way the result is great. So I
Yeah.
think that allows for less of a chance of atrophying both of attention and of skill set, as people are prone to be discouraged when response isn't what you expect it to be.
Yeah.
By the way, I love that your immediate answer to that question about where would Charisma be today had nothing to do with music. You were like, oh, maybe he's a coach and he has a loving family. Like that is a very human side that I don't think we think about much when we have these conversations.
Some of the dopest people I know don't do music anymore.
Mm,
And
yeah.
they're superheroes. I feel like the Chicago music story, the guy that's selling your weed is an amazing rapper. The guy that's bar backing for you plays an insane guitar, but he's a bar manager because there isn't some sync or licensing deal for his production, or there isn't studio sessions for him to sit in on to make, scale rates every week. I mean, in a city like this, much like Philly, you have to figure out your way. So I think in some ways it allows for the human element to get in there because I work a job. It happens to be in relation to things I care about, and it puts me in conversation with people I want to talk to. So I don't look at that as a loss. If anything, it's such a boon because when we do get to talk about the fun shit, it's extra fun. My mother's a great example. She was a musician. She was in a band that was signed to Island in the 80s, and it didn't work. I mean, she had a great career. She had fun, but it's not like, they're not written about. They're not someone that's like, you remember the 80s? Like, but they were doing tours. They were opening for Tina Turner. Like they were doing cool shit like that. And then when she was ready to put it down, she put it down and she had me and is now doing very wonderful, normal things that have, she hasn't, I don't know the last time she's even played an instrument. Maybe when I was taking piano lessons 20 plus 25 plus years ago and she was maybe fucking around with some scales or whatever. But like, if anything, she's given me a really awesome example of like how to, seek stability and be a whole ass adult. My thing is I still very much have part of my body, a good chunk of my body in making and fostering and creating music. So, to me, that's, I don't see myself quitting. I did a thought exercise years ago where I was like, okay, you quit music, now what? And I think it lasted about 20 minutes before I was like, I'm so fucking sad. Like, this is awful. Get me out of here. So yeah, that kind of informs maybe why I responded that way.
Hmm.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, Rich, thank you very much for this conversation. It's been fun and really informative. We really appreciate you and your answers and your time. Before we go, is there anything that you want folks to know? Any upcoming events?
If you're in the Chicago area, September 4th, catch me, D2X, and Bruiser Wolf at
Mm.
the Empty Bottle. It's going to be
Mm,
maybe my favorite show I play this year. I'm such a fan of both of them, especially Bruiser Wolf. Talk about meeting people that you appreciate as an artist and them just being fucking incredibly kind and talented. That's Bruiser Wolf. That's Bruiser Brigade in a nutshell. Like I can't say enough nice things about those people. When they came out to see us on tour, and then they're coming up to me like, man, like you're awesome, like we gotta like link. And I'm thinking, Jesus Christ, you guys have been voices in my car the last like forever, like 6 months or whatever, and like longer. And like now you're saying like let's kick it. Like, to me that's just so special. That's also to the earlier conversation about community. My mind goes towards how do we foster regional community, because it's not just
mm,
going to be Chicago, but Chicago can be the linchpin. So how do we get Detroit here? How do we get St. Louis here? How do we get Milwaukee here? How do we get Indianapolis here? How do we get us out there? y'all aren't that far. We need to be seeing each other every month. I feel like the East Coast gets it. Like Philly goes to New York goes to Philly, all along the seaboard. Y'all, it's a way more compact thing. But like, even so, people make it happen. And I think there's not as much of that mentality here. It's more bubbled here. So, I'm just excited to see what the future looks like with Chicago and the rest of the cities becoming real cozy. September 4th, me, Bruiser Wolf, D2X, Empty Bottle. Stay on the lookout for some more drops associated with Sour Dub. Vinyl coming October 1st. You can pre-order it now at $3 Pistols Bandcamp. I think the Bandcamp is 5o'clockshadowboxer.bandcamp.com. Shout out Zilla Rocca. Thanks so much to him for just being such a wonderful person to just kind of troubleshoot this shit with and just game plan for this whole experience. I think it's wild how calm I feel, and a lot of it has to do with him. Shout out Sleep Sinatra. Please support his work. Pay attention if anyone wants to go on a road trip to Nebraska to catch me and him playing some shows. Keep your eyes on those announcements, because I think that sort of link up, that's some big things. So I'm excited to see what him and I can cook up together live. And last but not least, man, let's all be really fucking nice to each other and kind to each other. You don't know what other people are going through, and I found kindness is the easiest way to make a new friend. So let's put all that out there, and you'd be surprised what you can find even from the surliest of people.
Amen.
Beautiful note to end on.
Yeah.
All right, folks.
Love.
This has been The Next Movement. Thanks for listening. Peace.
Waited until the coldest day of the year to lay this down. Forced myself to choose the coziest armor. Rolled the biggest joint I could muster. Spread out the wax like mustard. Get my fingers stuck to every surface. I digress. You know I went Loch Ness last year. You see me or you don't. No pictures please unless I'm cheesing. You see me smiling, I got reasons. Not just this reefer or Riesling. The situation's no ceilings. Stratospheric, euphoric, a stretch. Life taught me better than to expect it. I keep my head down. I focus on my plate and how to make a record's rotation means something deeper than being wallpaper for a scene or window dressing. I'll keep that path until my sun's setting. No second guessing and no more questions until the next one. One. Then it's showtime.
In this case, Mount Sinai's allegorical. Black Knight satellite roaming through this orbital. Radar started pinging foreign objects in the side view. Mirror looks closer than the mountain from a mile. You stacking up the pie. You got the